What's up, guys? Here to talk to you about UFC 269, which is going to be the last UFC pay-per-view event of the year. And what a year it's been. So this time around, the UFC is finishing up the year with 2 title fights on the line, one of which being the lightweight title, which is currently held by champion Charles Oliveira, going up against Dustin the Diamond Poirier, and Amanda Nunes is also going to be making an appearance to defend her Bantamweight title against Julianna Pena. Alright, so let's start off with the main event because I'm really excited to talk about it. So if you would have told me a year ago that Charles "Bronx" Oliveira would have came out of nowhere and taken the lightweight title by the end of the year and been sitting on the throne, I would have been very surprised. I mean, honestly, at the beginning of the year, we all had some type of an idea of who we expected to be champion by the end of it. You know, Conor was back, Dustin Poirier had been in the mix already, Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson, all these guys were being mentioned. Michael Chandler as well was in that category too. And Oliveira came out like a dark horse and took Michael Chandler out, was able to make an impressive performance against Tony Ferguson before that. And although he had some struggles at the beginning of his career, it's interesting to see how similar it is whenever it's compared to Dustin Poirier. Both of these guys used to fight at 145. As their careers advanced and they developed, they moved up to 155 to the lightweight division. And this is one of those rare scenarios that doesn't happen too often, where everyone can pretty much agree that these two guys definitely deserve a title shot. As I said, both of these guys have gone through the struggle. They've both gone through hell and back to get to this point in their careers. So as I said, both of these guys have stayed disciplined. They stayed ready. They stayed diligent. They took their losses and learned from them and grew as athletes and as fighters. And now they find themselves in that position again to both clinch their title. I mean, Charles Oliveira already clinched the title, but we somehow got into the stigma of you're not a real champion until you defend the title. So this Saturday night, unfortunately, is going to be a very heartbreaking night for one of these guys, and it's tough to see because both of these guys have become somewhat of fan favorites to see. You know, we've all seen the struggle and the hustle of Dustin Poirier, and we've seen the come up of Charles Oliveira. So nothing but respect between these two guys, and they both understand or respect the dangers that each one of them brings to the table. So looking into the resume of Charles Oliveira, like I said, he has taken his losses, but he has grown. He is on a 9-fight win streak, 14 finishes in his career at this point, and he's been able to get those finishes in a variety of ways. Whenever he first started, everybody kind of wrote him off as a jiu-jitsu only guy, submitting a lot of guys, but even in those fights that he was getting submissions, he was doing a lot of damage with the striking. A lot of those submissions came because folks were being overwhelmed with the strikes, and that's something that Dustin Poirier has taken into account, has given Charles Oliveira more credit than most people have given him in the past. He said that, yeah, Charles is very good on the jiu-jitsu game and on the ground whenever it comes down to that point, but he's also very deadly when it comes to his strikes. As we saw how he finished Michael Chandler after being rocked in the first round, Charles Oliveira is very hurt and was able to compose himself, come back in the second round, and still put on an impressive showing. And he's been in there with a variety of opponents. Whenever he was in there with Tony Ferguson, although some people may say Tony had a bad night, you're still in there with Tony Ferguson, somebody who's become almost like an icon or a phenom. And the overcoming the nerves and the adversity that person in particular presents to you is a big obstacle for Oliveira to overcome, and he did it successfully. Even before that, when he finished Kevin Lee, he submitted Clay Guida. You know, Charles Oliveira has the most submissions in UFC history, and he hasn't lost since 2017. So he's gotten into this rhythm of winning, and even whenever he's faced with this adversity and faced with getting hurt or rocked, he's able to still push forward and push through it as a true champion should. The only downside to Charles Oliveira is that he hasn't been into those late championship rounds, but that's really no fault of his own. If you could be dominant, be dominant. There's no reason to drag it out. The only other con I can think of when it comes to Charles Oliveira is that he is vulnerable to taking shots. You know, we've seen him get hurt. We've seen him be vulnerable. So he's really going to have to be on his game whenever it comes to Dustin Poirier's efficient striking. To me, in my opinion, what makes Charles Oliveira so dangerous is that he's very dynamic with his striking and mixing in his style very differently each time that he fights. With his level changes or with his angle, even the shot that took down Michael Chandler, it was a check left hook that followed up. Did it have intention on ending the whole fight? I'm not sure, but the way that it landed so efficiently was good enough to get Chandler rocked and ended up costing him the fight. Charles Oliveira is the longer striker, so I could assume that he's going to be picking his shots very carefully, very precisely. I think that his precision is definitely going to have to be on point, as well as his defense. The other thing is, in my opinion, Charles Oliveira seems like the quicker fighter, or I guess the quicker striker, when it comes to landing his shots faster and getting out, or shooting him for a takedown after he hits a couple combos up top. For Oliveira to be successful, I believe he's going to have to get Dustin to be thinking about more than just striking and getting off the cage. He's going to have to mix up takedowns, even just start level changing from the get-go, as well as mixing in leg kicks. Dustin Poirier's legs, although he will check them, after a while, it takes him a while before he catches on to a rhythm. And speaking of the diamond himself, Dustin Poirier, what can we say? The man's overcome so much in his career, has taken losses at the most unopportune times for him to take a loss whenever he was gaining all this momentum. He went out there, he climbed his way up to the top to fight Khabib, ended up losing via submission to Khabib, and has fought himself right back into another title fight. I mean, he went into an all-out war with Dan Hooker. He fought Conor twice. The second one, very ill-advised. The first one came as a complete shock to the world. I remember seeing that first fight, and to be honest with you, I had Conor to win that fight and come back and continue on his title run again. But Dustin Poirier derailed that entire thing and overcame the adversity after getting rocked in the first round as well, and finished Conor in that memorable combo whenever he realized he could just circle out, which is a big part of Dustin Poirier's game, is fighting in the open range. But we'll get to that later. In the second fight with Conor, I thought that was very ill-advised. They actually gave Poirier the call to fight either Oliveira or Michael Chandler for the vacant title, and Dustin Poirier said declined it and went on to fight Conor again. Very risky decision. He put a lot of eggs into the Conor basket, but, you know, he did get to reap the benefits that comes with fighting Conor McGregor, which is a lot of money. So now he has a chance to get the best of both worlds. 2 Conor fights, bank account looking great, and on to get the title fight. Although people try to undermine Dustin Poirier's win over Conor due to his leg breaking, he was still doing very well in that fight. He was performing very efficiently, had Conor on the ground. Everything was looking great for him, and unfortunately the way it ended was left up in the air, but still, the win is a win. In my opinion, Dustin Poirier's 2 top strengths are being able to be out in the open and pressure his opponents to either back up or to come chase him so that he can counter, as well as using his angles. Whenever Dustin's using his angles, I mean, he is very deadly. The other thing that complements his angles is just being defensively using his angles, which is something that Dustin Poirier does very, very well, to the point where it's almost exhausting to try to keep hitting him. I mean, he will engage in these all-out wars in the middle and then slowly let his opponents gas out, which just goes to show his ability to be able to control the pace and to be able to control the rhythm. Which brings me into another one of his strengths, is the rhythm that Dustin Poirier has. It may take him a while to get that rhythm down, but once he gets there, he's almost unstoppable. I mean, he knows exactly how many punches to throw in, when to get in and out of danger, when to pour on more pressure, when his opponents are starting to wither away, and whenever he gets closer to getting that finish again and again. I know there's those moments of the fights whenever Dustin puts his hands on his knees and he's trying to get his second win. You know he's going to come back with something strong and something that's going to be vicious. So this is going to be very interesting to see. I mean, this main event checks every box of what you would love to see in a title fight main event. So what makes this one so interesting when it comes to the striking is that Dustin Poirier can put the work on anybody. Once he gets into that rhythm, it just starts waterfalling upon his opponents. And on the other hand, Oliveira, although he may not be as efficient in striking, he's definitely the more dangerous one when the amount of damage he can do in just a single well-timed strike is devastating. So this is going to be a really great matchup to see. I believe that Dustin Poirier is going to take his experience from being in those 5-round fights, being in those championship rounds, and also have been fighting for the belt before, and having all of this pressure of fighting Conor on him before and dealing with all eyes on him, and it's his time to shine. I believe that experience is going to pay off, and I believe that Dustin Poirier is going to win in a second-round TKO victory. So following up with the co-main event, which is going to be Amanda Nunes versus Julianna Pena for Amanda Nunes' Bantamweight title, which she has been reigning over the women's featherweight and bantamweight at the same exact time. So my opinions about Amanda Nunes have not been too hidden. I think she's one of the greatest fighters of all time, and definitely one of the best fighters, if not the best fighter on the UFC roster right now. And honestly, at this point, I don't see anybody dethroning her simply because she's been so dominant. Nunes has finished multiple opponents like Chris Cyborg, Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate. She's pulled off victories twice against Valentina Shevchenko. And honestly, if your name isn't Valentina Shevchenko, I don't see anybody giving her many issues. Not only has Amanda Nunes continued to win in both divisions, but she's also continued to be vicious and seemingly improving each and every time that she fights, and dominating kickboxers like Holly Holm at their own game, dominating people who are going to outpace her at their own game, submissions, all that. She's the full package, full deal. Julianna Pena says that she's going to go in there and put on a pace that Amanda isn't prepared for, that she's never seen. I find that hard to believe, but if this is going to be an upset, it will probably be the biggest upset in the UFC of MMA almost of all time. Julianna has been calling out Nunes for quite a while now, saying that Nunes has been ducking her, has been avoiding her, doesn't want to fight her, and that she has an amazing pace that Nunes can't take. And although Pena has some great skills, when it comes to fighting big names like Valentina Shevchenko, she has kind of been 50-50. You know, she doesn't always put her best foot forward, and her record is a little spotty. But if she says she has the cure or the solution to take care of Amanda Nunes, you know, who's to say she doesn't? She does have great pace and she does have great ground and pound skills, but getting Amanda Nunes to that point where she's able to work her ground game is going to be a definite challenge. From what I've seen from Julianna Pena, she leaves a lot of holes in her defense. Even when she's striking, she throws a bombardment of strikes just to get close and get in for a takedown. But Amanda Nunes has been in there some vicious strikers and some vicious wrestlers as well. Pena claims that Amanda Nunes' weakness is at her conditioning. Her conditioning has been, I guess, a vulnerable spot for her in the past. And yeah, there are some performances that she had where you could tell that she was starting to gas out. But Amanda has been very open about that, and she's admitted that, yeah, she was getting gassed out in some of her performances. In one of her fights where she was starting to get a little lackluster and starting to shoot in for takedowns out of desperation. But she's addressed those, and she's gotten a new strength and conditioning coach. And so hopefully she was able to fix those problems. So for Julianna to depend on Amanda Nunes to show up not at 100% or to be out of shape or unconditioned, that is a very slim chance. And even if Pena is able to get Amanda Nunes to the ground, how long is she going to be able to keep her there? Is she going to be able to actually work anything without having to struggle to keep Amanda in place so that she can be effective there? In my opinion, Amanda Nunes is just on another level, and I don't see her slowing down anytime soon. And I'm looking for her to come right out of the gate, diminishing any doubt that anybody has ever had about her or her conditioning, and remaining the women's Bantamweight champion. I believe she's going to do it via TKO in the 3rd round. So as a quick bonus fight to watch, I would definitely tune into the Cody No Love Garbrandt fight versus Kai Kara France. Definitely check that one out. Kai Kara France has been putting on some incredible performances. Cody Garbrandt is trying to get back to that title and has been putting on some good performances, but is still trying to get some stability under him. So definitely check that one out. I think that one's going to be one of the best fights on the main card. And personally, I think Kai Kara France is going to end up getting that win because Cody No Love seems to be too distracted by Sean O'Malley. But we'll see what happens. All right, so as always, guys, thank y'all for tuning in. I appreciate y'all. Let me know who you got picked to win on Saturday night. And if you haven't yet, please follow my friends who are making some incredible content. As always, guys, stay safe, stay blessed. Have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you.